My name is Indy and today I am here to talk about Shadowhunters Season 3. Now I know I haven't done any of the other seasons of the show, season 1 and 2, but I am slightly late to the bandwagon here because obviously episode 3 just dropped the other day. But I really want to do like a 2-episode review of the show and the progression, storylines, what's happening, because I love this book series so much. TV show I enjoy, but I don't like that it's really gone off topic, but I do want to keep talking about it. I still enjoy watching the show, definitely, but it's not as faithful as I'd love it to be. But anyway, I want to talk about episodes 1 and 2, and I promise next week that I will have episode 3 and 4 ready just after the show, so I will be on time next week with that. But I'm so ready to talk about the show because there's just so much to talk about because we're into season 3 already. So I'm gonna shut up about the intro and let's get on. Now for these reviews, I just want to make it clear that I have read all of the books obviously, and I will maybe talk about some of the things that are different from the book, so bear with that. I will warn you if need be if it's something big secret thing, and you can skip ahead. But for the most part, I'll probably just be talking about both book and TV show and some differences. And of course, if you have not watched season 1 and 2, this is a spoiler warning because we're gonna get into the season 3 stuff. So go and watch season 1 and 2, and if you want to come back and view my thoughts and opinions on season 3, then you're welcome to come back later on. So at the end of season 2, we have left Jonathan, who I also might call Sebastian from time to time because I just do that because I'm just so used to reading him as Sebastian. So he is lying in a pool of blood because JACE had stabbed him when they were fighting on that bridge in season 2, and I think he's just on the beach and he's calling for his mother, and I know who his mother is, and you book readers will know who that is. I'm not going to spoil that because I feel like it's quite a big thing. I'm not sure if they're going to make a big thing of it, but I know who his mother is, and I'm not sure if that's the way we're going with this weird, like, burnt, black covered in black lady who's trying to save him, and then obviously she turns to some pretty lady, but she's the one like sacrificing people. I'm not really sure if we're going with that storyline or we're taking a new one here. And we also have the Wraith demons, I think that's the weird flying bloody dragon things, going into some swirling vortex thing, so I'm sure that's gonna come up at some point. I'm not sure if that's coming into the mortal world or what that sort of was at the end of season 2. Also at the end of season 2, we have Simon lying to Myron saying that he is going to the Dumont Hotel to do some stuff with the vampires because Raphael asked him, but he's actually going back to the Sealy court because he made some deal with the Sealy queen to like let Maya go, and he's now spending time there which is strange, but I feel like I'm not opposed to the storyline. We have JACE and Clary with their secret of her bringing JACE back with Raziel the angel, so that's a big secret that we have to keep. And Malik, I believe, is all fine and happy. So that's where we left in season 2. Let's get into the episode 1 storyline. The main demonic storyline we have going on here is we see a scary lady with a big stone bench thing, and we find out that she is taking on like good people. I'm not really sure what the right term is, but like good people, and she is sacrificing this guy named Tim. He's a doctor, and she's getting him to kill a family member, and then she was bleeding him out into some like vat bloody stone thing, but then he also doesn't die right there. We see him later on because Clary blasts him later on with her rune hand bloody thing and just fries that mother. So like a weird storyline. I feel like I know what's happening here, and obviously in episode 2, which I'll get to, we learn a bit more about it. I'm not sure if that is going with the book storyline because as it stands we're starting into book 4 of the 6-book series with this season's stuff. So I'm not sure if we're following with this particular storyline of the blood thing for the ley lines is going into the other main storyline that involves JACE. I'm not really sure, but I won't say too much at the moment, but I feel like they're gonna not come together as one. I feel like they're gonna separate and have 2 different storylines here. So it's time for Clace time! So in Clace's storyline, we see Clary in Alicante, which is very strange looking. It's so futuristic when they like did that pan shot down to her as she's speaking her thing to get her angelic rune. So weird to see it like that. I liked that they had the little towers still, like the adamant or whatever it is. Not adamant, I don't think that's the right thing. The towers, so that was cool, but it was like so futuristic. I was like, no, 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 this is not how it is in the book. but it's okay. I'm trying to still move past this fact. But yeah, so she's officially a Shadowhunter now, which I thought was kind of weird. Like, it definitely happens in the book, I understand that, but I feel like we didn't go through the journey of her actually training properly. Like, we got a few fight scenes throughout season 1 and 2, but I guess because it's a book, it translates differently and it's a long-winded thing. But I feel like we saw her fighting and training and learning so much more than we did in the TV show, which I guess is boring, but I sort of just feel like, way, she's a full-blooded Shadowhunter now, like, all of a sudden. So Alec is very suspicious and keeps asking Clary and Jace about Jace dying, which I thought was interesting because I feel like definitely not a book plot that he knew, because it didn't disappear. His parabatai rune didn't disappear. He just sort of got quite a sharp pain and stuff. So interesting that, like, he sort of knows that Jace died, and so this creates, I guess, more conflict in that regard. So I guess that's why it's there. One issue that I want to bring up is something that they said. I think it was when Jace and Clary were at Stephen and Jace's mum. I can't remember her name. Anyway, their gravestones in Alicante in the bad graveyard. He said something about it like being the band, like bad people circle graveyard place. Anyway, and he said something about like it's not an okay thing to wish with an angel. Like it's like, you know, that's what they're getting in trouble for, not necessarily that she brought him back from the dead, like necromancy, I'm sorry, but it's more the fact that she used Raziel to make a wish, which I thought was like weird, because I guess when is anyone ever gonna have a chance to do that? So why is it like a bad, like, you cannot do that, like you're gonna get locked up in prison forever for that. I mean, Valentine was gonna do it, obviously, which, you know, he was gonna raise an angel, which is bad, but I just don't know why it's a known thing that it's a bad thing, because like, who's ever gonna do it? So that's another issue that I was like, oh, okay, so it's not the fact that she brought him back, it's the fact that she used an angel to make a wish. So interesting. So the next thing we see in Clary's storyline of becoming a full Shadowhunter, trained up, everything, is she chooses her weapon. This was quite cheesy, I have to be honest. She picked these dual kinjals, like 2 blade things. I mean, that was cool, but like, I mean, I know, because I've read the books and stuff, that obviously the Stellae is her thing, and as we see later in the episode, she uses the Stellae to get rid of the Tim weird wraith demon thing, and so we find out that's her actual tool, which thank God. But it was just so cheesy when she was with Luke and he was like, oh, you chose your weapons, oh, that's your father's sword, oh, and that's your mother's sword. Like, just ooh, the cringe. It was uncomfortable. I was like, really? Did we have to go there? Can't you just say, oh, you chose those weapons, fun? Like, no, that was so lame. Alright, that was the Clary / Jace Clace moment. Let's talk about JACE. So in Jace's storyline, we're going with a book plot, which is awesome, and that is that he's having these dreams of killing Clary. Jonathan is showing up in his dreams and just like scaring the hell out of him, and Clary somehow end up being stabbed. And that is a storyline from the book, that he's having these reoccurring dreams, so that's why he can't like get intimate with her, because he's freaking out that he's gonna kill her. So that's interesting, and I know what that storyline plays into later on, so hopefully we're going with that storyline, because they'd be stupid not to do it. But we did get lured into a false sense of security with that one, where we think that the dreams are over, but of course in episode 2 we see they're not. So, you know, they tried to make us suspenseful there. Alright, on to Malik time. So it seems to be a TV like trope thing that we have this conflict always sort of every episode or every other episode with Malik. Like there's some issue and they sort of like are in an iffy like not talking spot, and then they like make up. So I don't know why this is a constant thing. I recall them having a few issues and things in the book, but I just didn't think it was this dramatic. But in this one we find out that Magnus is no longer the High Warlock of Brooklyn. It is now this Lorenzo Ray guy, and Magnus is thrilled about it, but honestly we find out from Katrina, his good friend who is a doctor at the hospital, that he's very sad about it. So Malik have a moment together to you know, talk about it, and it's all good again, because Alec was going to go for a council position because he was offered it in Alicante, but of course when he found out Magnus was not happy about not being High Warlock anymore, they made up and he's staying in New York City. Woo! Like, just I'm not surprised at all. Alright, it's time for Simon. So this is another great storyline that we're leading into for Simon. I'm looking forward to this, like, opening out into such a great story here. So when we open on Simon, he's in the Sealy Court just having a sing-along because he's just there. I don't know how long he was there for, obviously an extended period of time because Maya was like, I'ma kill you, where were you? But I just love that Alberto's just always singing, you know, just like, hey. I'm sad to not see Sarah Hyland anymore as the Queen Lady. I don't know if that's been an issue because her and Dom broke up, but it's okay to go back to the young little girl. But I liked Sarah Hyland. It was kind of fun to be like, oh hey. So at the Sealy Court, Simon gets branded with a mark on his forehead, which we see what happens in episode 2 with that mark. I know what the mark is, but obviously it hasn't been revealed necessarily. Maybe in episode 3 we find out, but I know what mark it is as a book reader and I don't want to spoil it, so I won't. But it's pretty cool, man. It's a cool mark, and I don't exactly remember why she did it. Obviously to like protect him, but I just don't remember why we gave him the mark. But I mean, yes, I love the storyline, so I'm so here for it. The last character I want to talk about specifically in this one episode wrap up so far is Ollie. So she is Luke's like partner, police person who's just a mundane, and it's an interesting take here. I'm not really sure why we have this Ollie storyline. I guess because he's a police officer and they always have a partner and she knows things about the shadow world. I guess that's why. I'm not sure if we're trying to fill the spot for the fact that we killed Jocelyn in freaking season 1, which obviously doesn't happen in the books at all. We are having a storyline, I don't want to say it, but like it's a really good storyline in book 3, I think it is, involving Simon, but Luke and Jocelyn are going to get married at some point between book 3 and 6. We make it there, but I don't know, I'm not sure why we're having this storyline. I don't hate it, it's definitely interesting and a different sort of story, but I think it's just a filler story, so we have Luke in there somehow because Jocelyn is dead in the TV show. So Ollie is like definitely onto the fact that Luke is a werewolf, and she tells him a story about how she got some marks when she was a rookie cop, so I feel like we're definitely going to induct her into this more shadow world. He keeps denying it at the moment, which is painful. I might just say yes and see what happens, but at the moment we're just denying the fact that anything is going on. The other two little topics that I want to bring up that from this episode are little tidbits that I'm assuming will maybe lead into something. One of them I think definitely not, but it's just weird. So the first one is Raphael. We see Raphael going to Magnus for some sort of sleeping potion, and we see him like drugging some woman at some point, like dripping in little things to keep her asleep, which we do find out a little bit more in episode 2, but I was just like, what's going on here, you shady thing? And the other storyline, which I thought was really random, which will lead into nothing, is Izzy, JACE, Alec and her are at the hospital. A little storyline bit with this doctor, and she's just talking about her, I assume it's her addiction to yin fen is still an issue, because she's talking about like at her like weekly clinic meetings or whatever, she talks about it, and so her outlet is candy, so she's trying to get this like bag of candy out of the vending machine. It was a little weird little storyline in there. I'm assuming it was supposed to be comedic, but it was just really random in my opinion. Alrighty, that is all my thoughts and opinions on episode 1. Let's get into episode 2 stuff. Alrighty, at the start of episode 2, we are at Lorenzo Ray, or whatever his name is, his house to celebrate being the new High Warlock of Brooklyn. So Magnus and Alec go to attend. Obviously Alec attracts some unwanted attention, and they're all just having a fine old time, and then all of a sudden these ley lines erupt at the place, and these red marks on the floor. Everyone's magic goes out of control, and of course they're blaming Magnus for that one because he is the outgoing High Warlocks, and so they think that he's trying to like show up that, you know, he's more powerful and yada yada. So that was a storyline that we investigated, and it's also linked through to the weird lady that's sacrificing good people and cutting their throat, and the blood is going into some little stone pool thing, and that's reaching out to upset the ley line thing. I'm not really sure what this storyline is going to be. It's kind of mixing together a book storyline as well as this new sort of storyline here, which is a little weird. Again, I'm not sure if they're going to like mix it together or if it's gonna come into this story with JACE or not. I'm not really sure what's happening there. So the next cute bit was that JACE asked Clary on a date, which I appreciated, but it was like a weird, like not JACE sort of thing. I don't know what was going on with this episode and JACE. Usually he's quite up himself, as we know. He's funny, he's witty, but he was sort of just being really weird and like sappy and like, I want to take you on a date, and had to ask everyone like, where do I take her on a date? Like, I don't know, it was just very weird, that whole thing. And then even at the end of the date, which I will get into because I love that so much, but even at the end after the date, it was just like, I don't know, really just sappy. Like he just kept being like, oh, I really like you and yada yada. And I don't hate that we're seeing some affection, but he just didn't seem like himself necessarily. And I'm not sure if it's because of these dreams that he's having that there's an issue, but like, I don't know, he was just being very weird, and I'm not a fan of it at the moment. I'm just like, I want the funny JACE. Not that we were ever really getting a good necessary representation of JACE from the books, but I'm still enjoying Dom playing the character. It's just, I don't know, it was just a very weird change for him. So I'm hoping we see a different sort of change in episode 3. One interesting thing I found was when JACE went to go ask Izzy for a advice on where to take Clary on the date, she was pulling apart her necklace, her demon necklace. This one right here, because I have one, hell yeah. She was pulling out like the little diamondy bit in here. So, and that's the tracker that like on her neck that flashes when there's a demon close by. So I'm not really sure what she was doing there, if it was supposed to be something in particular or was gonna lead into something, but anyway, I appreciated that. And Luke does talk to her later on because she is working so hard in this episode in particular, just having no life, just working on finding pictures and images on the screens and just not doing anything with herself. So it's a bit of a sad moment for Izzy, but I'm sure that her storyline will pick up, and hopefully it does, because something is supposed to be going on right now book-wise for Izzy, but we're not seeing it at the moment, so we'll see if that storyline comes into effect or not. So going back to the Leyline story, we have Magnus and Alec trying to investigate what's going on. I loved this scene so much. So Alec goes to Lorenzo's house to sort of suss out, and he lets Magnus in to sneak around and figure out what's going on, because it is supposedly this greater demon called Asmodeus, which we find out is actually Magnus's dad, which I don't know if I believe they said he's a greater demon, like one of like the most powerful, but I thought that Magnus's dad was one of the 9 princes of hell. So I'm not sure if that has been said before in the TV show. I know it's from the book, but I'm not really sure what's going on there. So Lorenzo thinks that it is Magnus's dad doing this, and we find out that it's not. It's something much worse. But I loved Alec like being like, oh, can I get a tour of your home? And he was like, oh, I know there's a vase upstairs. And Lorenzo's like, you like pottery? And Alec's like, I dabble. So I really loved the little thing, and Magnus is just like, what are you doing? And I like how he was just like, ooh, like dipping in and out of the scene. So that was just funny in general, just like Alec trying to be like, hello, we're friends, when he's just like, obviously not. And it was just like really funny. You could see it on his face that he was just like pretending to be like, yay, I'm so happy to be here, nothing's going on. I did love the weird shampoo scene between Alec and Magnus. So unnecessary, but it was so great. Right, going back to the date saga, JACE takes Clary out, and it was such a JACE like slash like Shadow World moment that they show up this restaurant and Letty's like, ah, what's your reservation? He's just like, what reservation? I just enjoyed that so much. Not that it was obviously a key moment at all, it was just funny. So of course Letty pops them on a communal table, and who is there but Simon and Maya having a date. And that was just absolutely like such a great scene, them all talking and it just being like awkward, and like Simon knowing things for Clary, like she doesn't like shellfish and stuff. It was just, yeah, it was just awkward. But my favorite part of this whole episode was the whole tattoo moment where she's like, I couldn't like do the runes and the tattoos and stuff, and like JACE is like, that's like funny coming from a girl who has a butterfly tattoo, and she's just like, and Simon's like, oh, that's pretty well hidden. Like, how do you know about that? And like all like sort of innocent. And then Clary's like, oh, you saw it when she like wolfed out, right? And he was just like, no, not exactly, no. And Maya's just like, yeah. Like, it was just so awkward, but so great. And I also love that Clary asks Maya about like when she wolfs out, like what happens to her clothes, because I love this question. Like, I always want to know too. So she just has to like, she just rips up her clothes and she's just naked. That's how it is. And that's how it is in most shows. But I was just like appreciating that she asked this. I was like, yes, that's all I could have wanted. Following Simon through this mark situation on his head, obviously Maya's looking for it, and he does get kicked out of the boathouse at the end of the episode, and that is when we find out the true power of this mark, which I'm gonna I don't know if I should spoil what it's called, but I mean, I don't know if I don't know, I don't want to say it, but I do, but I won't. So we find out that when someone tries to attack Simon, that the pain they're about to inflict is back on them. So that's what we sort of saw. We saw this guy who was running with a baseball bat at Simon just get whooshed out. So obviously it's some sort of protection mark that we saw glow on his head. So yay, I love this storyline, so I'm excited to get into that whole thing. And the last major storyline thing that happened here was trying to repair this ley line damage thing, because it did affect the hospital where Katrina was working. She started using her magic and the ley line sort of attacked, and you know, it killed someone at the hospital, so she was very upset about that. But we have a plan to, like, I don't know, relinquish it all out by using the core in the Institute. Now, I don't know what this is. I'm not a fan of this, because I was like, what are we? Are we charmed with the Nexus? Are we like divergent with that little box thing? Like, what is this core thing? Like, angelic power thing? Like, no, it was so stupid. They went into this room, there's this big like power circle thing, and Magnus is like working on it, and Alec is like do do do. I'm like, what is this? This is such a weird storyline thing. I'm not a fan. Hopefully it's over, because that was just weird. We had a dramatic moment of music, and then like the lady was like bleeding the people, and like the red lines were gonna go out, and then we whooshed it out. It was all very dramatic. I loved it. That was a great sequence. But yeah, the core thing, not a fan. The last thing that I quickly want to touch on is one sentence that I really loved when Alex showed up at Lorenzo's was that he said, you're not a very loyal boyfriend, because he thought Magnus was behind the whole ley line attack at his house. And I just thought, damn straight, that was a great sentence, because it's kind of true. Like, we are seeing lots of moments of Alex trying to, I don't know, not upset Magnus, but like, I don't know. There's lots of instances where he's not very loyal to Magnus, and that's why there's always issues and arcs every episode of them having issues, and when then we're good again. So I just thought that was like something I wanted to quickly say at the end here, because I thought, true that, true that. Alright, that is all my thoughts, opinions, and feels on episode 1 and 2 of season 3 of the Shadowhunters TV show. I'm enjoying watching this show, and I can't wait to watch episode 3. I watched half of it last night, so I'm trying to like keep my thoughts separate from like what happened in episode 1 and 2. But I'm so looking forward to continuing this series. I don't know how many episodes are going to be in this season, but I will definitely, as I said, be doing 2 episodes at once, so I should have the next video up just after episode 4. So I'm so looking forward to talking to you Shadowhunters more about this. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!